Welcome back to the second episode of The Old North, which is my first crack at solo role-playing with Ironsworn system. So what we did in the previous episode, if you recall, was we established the truths of the game world. What that means is Ironsworn has a sort of default background, which is kind of sort of Viking based, and it has some configuration parameters for that, some truths as they call it, where you can kind of tweak that background to your liking. What I've done is I've taken that structure but used it to define a version of what's called sub-Roman Britain after the Romans leave. So sort of the King Arthur period, but probably without King Arthur. So we've got that, and some of the key points of it are the setting is the Old North, so northern Celtic Britain after the Romans have left, but before the Saxons have really swept across all of lowland Britain. Kind of early in the Saxon invasion, I figure. I elected to have magic as part of the setting, but to keep it fairly rare and dangerous and obscure. And what I've got in mind is kind of based on this old game Ars Magica that I'm quite a fan of. Using a supplement for Ironsworn called Arcanum, which is structurally quite similar to that. Okay, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that because that was last episode. What we're going to do in this episode is we're going to do character and setting, and we're going to try and flesh out a character and flesh out a bit of the setting in order to get started role-playing with the inciting incident. Okay, so how do you do a character in Ironsworn? Well, what they say is envisage your character. Envision, I think they call it. Envision your character. So before you start messing with stats and stuff, get an idea what they're like. What I've decided to do, I should say, is I was proposing to use Iron Journal, which is a sort of online tool for Ironsworn. I ended up, after a bit of experimenting this morning, I ended up going back to Foundry, which is the VTT I use for most of my online games. It's got a pretty good Ironsworn module, and it also lets me plug in some other bits and bobs that I found useful. This isn't a criticism of Iron Journal. I suspect it's just I don't really know my way around Iron Journal. It's just quicker to use Foundry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do character and setting. I created a basic character. Here he is. Caradoc, which is a nice Welsh name. And let's talk about envisioning him. So I've written some things down here. What I thought was want him to be educated, which in this time and place probably means he's some kind of Romano-British aristocrat or of, such family. I suppose he could have been Romano-British middle class, but what I want is for him to be able to be pretty decent at, writing and speaking Latin, which most of those guys were. And also obviously to speak the local flavour of Celtic, which is kind of, think of it as archaic Welsh. Where's he from? Well, I myself am from this little peninsula here. Let me get the character sheet out of the way. I'm from this little peninsula here. And see, this is the map of the Old North from yesterday. There's a place, just see that pointy bit there, the bit sticking out into this is the River Dee. That's Wales. There's a bit sticking out into the River Dee here, called Burton Point, and there's a hill fort on there. Now, knowing that in the sub-Roman period we're talking about, those hill forts got re-inhabited, what I'm going to say is he is the hereditary holder of that hill fort. Yeah, so I think he's recently, or perhaps this happens in the initial kickoff, but he's the son of the holder of that hill fort. Yeah, and I think probably ends up himself as the holder of that hill fort pretty early on. So he's got a base here. Yeah, this is a bit of a wilderness. Arguably still is. This is an important Roman city, the city of Chester, and it's hooked up into the Roman road network. But Burton Point is sort of a bit off the beaten track. Yeah, it's potentially I think it's an interesting place to kick off. So, all right, we've got this character. He's speaking right Latin. He's got a few sworn warriors, yeah. But I think developing the gift of magic has been a problem, right? He's kind of, I haven't quite worked it out yet, but he's kind of a black sheep, right? Either if his family's still kicking, he's like the heir to, or maybe the second string, maybe the second son or something, is a black sheep because he developed the gift. Maybe his elder brother is the chieftain. That might work. Anyhow, he's a black sheep, but he does have a few sworn warriors. However, they're not real comfortable about it either, so they're not like blood brothers or anything. Yeah. Now, I rolled some more of these mythic questions, and I asked, does he have a warband? So I decided yes, he has a warband. And I asked the question, does he have a mentor in magic? And I got the answer, yes, he does. But I got some interesting stuff when I applied the oracle. So that, yes, he has a mentor, generated an unexpected event, which is it's a random new NPC, yeah, characterized by carelessness and tension. What does that mean? I thought. So I did some more oracle rolls. I rolled a bunch on the Ironsworn oracles for characters to get role, goal, descriptor, etc. What I ended up with was they're a bandit. Their goal is to defend a place somewhere. They're vengeful about something. They were sneaking and maybe got caught, is my thought. Yeah, because the carelessness and the sneaking kind of go together that way. They're not particularly friendly to our protagonist, and there's some tension there. So what I think happened is they got caught. Yeah, they got caught. However, their vengefulness is not directed at our protagonist or his people. It's actually with some mutual enemy. Yeah, so there's a tension there, but it's not flat out enmity. If anything, they have a mutual enemy, and they recognise, both of them recognise the other has the gift of magic, which means this person is a potential mentor. Yeah, haven't worked it out yet, but that's what I found out about them, and I'll flesh that out shortly. So I think that's enough character and setting to be starting with. Let's have a bit of a look at how the character sheet works, right? So you've got a name, in this case Caradoc. There are 5 stats, and you distribute a 3, 2 2s and 2 1s to those stats. I'll explain why heart is here in a sec. So edge is quickness, agility, and range combat. Heart is courage, willpower. Yeah. So this, yeah. Iron is physical, kind of how hard can you hit people and how hard a hit can you take. Shadow is sneakiness and cunning, and wit is, analytical kind of intelligence. Health is what it sounds like. Spirit is your kind of mental state. Supply is kind of an abstraction for all of the crap that you normally have to keep track of in role-playing games. Yeah, so Ironsworn doesn't bother counting candles. It just has a supply track, and you use up supply, and you have to replenish supply, and it abstracts. You roll against supply to see if you've got it. Yeah. Momentum is pretty important. Momentum in Ironsworn is something that grows as you continue. Let's say, as you have successes, your momentum tends to grow, and as you fail, your momentum tends to drop. The thing about momentum is, once you've got it at a high enough level, you can cash it in for victory, let's say, or you can cash it in for either to turn a weak success into a strong success, or to get you over the edge. So it's quite useful at climactic moments to be able to cash in a big pile of momentum. Yeah. Vows are how you structure your story in Ironsworn, and I'll talk more about those when we get into the inciting incident. But we're going to have some kind of vow. It's probably going to be something to do with learning about how to do magic properly, I think. Yeah, but we'll work that out as we go. Okay, so bonds are your social bonds. I don't think this guy is particularly bonded with his warband, although that might happen, and he's certainly not bonded with this new NPC mentor. Yeah. So his bond is probably with his village or something, yeah. Maybe a family member, like an older brother or something. Debilities, yeah. Stuff like wounded conditions, poison, that kind of thing. Burdens, yeah, so we don't need to know this. Okay, assets. Assets can be a variety of things, right? So assets can be, where am I? Well, assets can be things like you have a giant spider companion, yeah, or you have a giant spider companion or a human companion. That's an option. Or they are what are called paths, which are a little bit like character classes, but they're modular character classes, if you like. So you might be an alchemist, but it's not the only thing you are. Yeah. Now, the one path that I think I had in mind, this guy's a bit of a cunning, tricky sort of fellow. Primarily a magus, but also a cunning and tricky sort of fellow, right? So infiltrator, maybe good at sneaking and hiding. That might be a possibility. Because his social skills are crap, maybe he's an outcast. That could work. Some of them you can't actually have unless all the conditions are fulfilled. Like this one, you've got to go and serve an elder mystic. That's actually not so far from what you might have to do to learn, how to practice magic effectively. So that's interesting. Trickster, I think, is a go. I definitely want to take Trickster. And then we already said he's got a warband, yeah, when we were doing the fate decisions. So that is Commander. And then magic. So magic is represented in Arcanum with something called the Mark, which it's basically the gift from Ars Magica. And what the Mark says is you're one of the few people who can do magic. People don't trust you, you give them bad vibes, so decrease heart by 1, which I've done. And you get 1 verb and 1 noun, so create fire, or change bodies, or in his case, I think, control mind. Control mind, I want that partly because mind control is kind of often a barrel of laughs, and it gives you some tricks like just putting people to sleep, right? Which is quite a good non-lethal way of stopping them from bothering you. But crucially, it also covers ghosts, yeah, and I want him to have some facility with the spirit world. Okay, so what that means is then he's going to you basically take 3 2 2s and 2 1s, but I've subtracted 1 from heart, and I've made him smart, sneaky, tough, maybe a little bit slow on his feet, and so a little bit socially inept. Yeah. I've given him Rego, which is control, and Mentem, which is mind, and I'm gonna sort of relate the Arcanum dot system to Ars Magica to decide what that means he can do. I'm gonna say he's a trickster, and I'm gonna say he's got a small warband who don't necessarily entirely trust him. Yeah. Because of the aforementioned thing, but he can kind of use them as a social buffer, if you like. So it's not completely offsetting the weak heart score, but it does give him some options other than everybody hates you and you're an outcast. Yeah. Okay, so that's where I've gotten to. We've got a background, we've got a character. I think we're ready to figure out the inciting incident, and I think it's going to be something to do with this randomly generated. He's got a mentor for magic. Somehow, this person is going to help him learn magic, but there's tension. They're probably a captive. They've probably got a mutual enemy, and this person is also probably gifted. Yeah, so we'll figure that out. Okay, so that's this episode. Next up is getting started with vows and an inciting incident. Thank you.